were first married, my wife and I drove through the Amish country in Ohio. It was getting dark and we were seeking a motel or bed and breakfast to spend the night, tired after a long day on the road. As we were passing one small town, one highly unusual thing captured our attention. One building on the right of the street, right in front of us, was burned down. Dark charcoal pieces of wood laying all around, together with deformed items made of metal, ashes everywhere, burned grass. It was a sad sight. Only one wall of this formerly tall building was standing, a silent reminder that the tragedy which happened here had to be recent. And that wall had a large stained glass window in the middle. At that point, it dawned on us that the building was a church, which for some reason burned down. As we were slowly moving toward it, we saw one more thing. Another item besides the wall that was left intact was a sign in front of the church, such a sign that you can see in front of churches here too. It says, "Jesus lives," or "Come to worship with us," or "Go Bills." This sign contained two words, but they were highly unusual. The two words said, "Uncomfortable Jesus." And then there was a date. The date was that coming Sunday. The church, therefore, had to catch on fire just a few days ago, maybe yesterday, or that morning, because they were still planning on holding services that coming Sunday. The Sunday on which the pastor was hoping to preach on or say something about how uncomfortable Jesus is. Understandably, our curiosity was piqued. What happened to this church where Jesus is named as something or someone uncomfortable? How did it burn down? So when we finally found a place to stay, in one small and quiet bed and breakfast, we asked the owner if she knows what took place on the other side of the town. What happened to the church that burned down, we asked. For a minute, she looked at us with eyes wide open, as if trying to come to terms with it or remember the event, and then she said, "You mean the church that was struck by lightning?" The incident, of course, raises many uncomfortable questions. How do you go and rebuild a church that was struck by lightning just before the pastor was about to speak about uncomfortable Jesus? Did people think there was any connection? Questions like these should not be entertained by outsiders, though. They are left for those who experienced it. But I can tell you what this incident meant for me. It became a visible, uncanny reminder that Jesus poses a threat to every institution, even to the church. Jesus is loving, merciful, forgiving, and also uncomfortable. The book Playing God by Andy Crouch touches on a similar topic. Andy Crouch not only highlights that institutions are a gift that is needed for human well-being to flourish in our society, but he also says that institutions can threaten our stability and livelihood if they exploit the weak and protect the powerful. Various institutions, be it governments, organizations, schools, or even churches, can become zombies that suck the life out of us rather than give it to us. At the end of the chapter on principalities and powers, Crouch highlights that oftentimes institutions operate according to the pattern of this world, the pattern that he calls stoicheia, which is not the design of the way God imagines the world to be. Against this earthly pattern, however, stands Christ's cross, that unmasks and dismantles all human-based powers and principalities. Christ's life, death, and resurrection thus challenge all institutions that use their power to oppose and undermine Christ's teaching and are therefore directed against human welfare. I would like to demonstrate Crouch's ideas and perhaps take them a step further in one episode from Jesus' life, in which he seems to cause a whole host of uncomfortable feelings to those around him. The story does not speak about Jesus' relationship to institutions, but describes his dealings with a representative of a religious elite, who, like many organizations, wants to keep the status quo and maintain order. The story is written in Luke 7:36-50 and takes place during one of Jesus' visits. Since he was something of an itinerant teacher who did not have a permanent home, we find him in the Gospels dining in different houses quite often. In this particular instance, he is visiting one of the Pharisees, that is a member of a religious elite named Simon. Simon perhaps invited Jesus to discuss theological questions, or he was just curious to learn about this unlearned but popular rabbi from Galilee. In any case, they took place at the table, perhaps ready to eat. At that moment, an uninvited guest entered the place, a woman, known in that town as a person engaged in something sinful. Possibly she was a prostitute, we do not know. Her presence, however, was enough to raise one's eyebrows. But she did much more than just appeared among the distinguished men during their potluck and symposium in one. She came from behind to Jesus, likely knelt at his feet. She was weeping, and at the same time pouring on Jesus' feet expensive ointment and kissing his legs. Her tears, mixed with the precious ointment, were flowing down on Jesus' calves and ankles for everybody to see. Since this was likely not a premeditated event, the woman had no cloth or towel to wipe off Jesus' feet, so she used her long hair. Understandably, everybody in the room was shocked. I'm sure the house was suddenly dead quiet, and people felt very awkward. This was especially true for the host. After all, he invited Jesus for supper. It was his home. Simon is perplexed. I thought that this man was a prophet, he thinks. Doesn't he know who this woman is? That she is a sinner? Isn't she doing now in the daylight to this man what she does at night to other men? Such intimate and inappropriate touching does not belong to a decent company. The situation is highly uncomfortable for everybody involved. It is an awkward moment that calls for some kind of resolution, for a tacit move that would bring things back to normal. Maybe Jesus should say, "It's okay. You did nice things to me, but let's do it later. Then we can talk more." But this kind of placid response can hardly be expected of Jesus. He is known for making things even more uncomfortable, and he does so now too. Because for Jesus, the biggest interruption and problem is not the woman, but Simon. He is not troubled by the woman who weeps and touches him most inappropriately. He is troubled by the man who remains unmoved in face of such human agony. Therefore, he tells him a riddle. He says, "A certain moneylender had 2 debtors. One owed 500 denarii and the other 50. When they could not pay, he canceled the debts for both of them. Now, which of them will love him more?" Simon answered, "Well, I suppose the one for whom he canceled the greater debt." And Jesus said to him, "You have judged rightly." On the surface, the riddle that Jesus gives to Simon seems unrelated to the situation they are witnessing. But on a deeper level, it already changes the atmosphere. It tactfully takes away the attention from the woman and challenges the lens through which Simon thinks and sees. Maybe she is not the only debtor in the room. Maybe even Simon, who saw himself as a decent man, may not be as perfect as he thinks. This seems to be the case, because Jesus then turns toward the woman and asks the Pharisee one simple question. "Do you see this woman?" From a certain angle, this seems an unnecessary query. Of course, that Simon sees the woman, everybody in the room sees the woman, and that is the problem. But Jesus is again reaching after something more significant and deeper. Simon, according to his own inner words, saw a sinner. Jesus, however, sees a woman. Simon's approach represents a view so frequently present in many of our institutions and in many of our judgments about others. We use labels. We categorize people. We put them in boxes. Those on the left, those on the right. Progressives, conservatives. Good, bad, those with whom I like to socialize, and those others. Sinners over there, us over here. But labels divide. Humanity, our common humanity, unites. While Simon sees a sinner, Jesus sees a human person. Do you see that woman, Simon? Because she is, first of all, a human being, a person. This is the first from Jesus' uncomfortable remarks that I think challenge every institution. Jesus calls us to see others beyond any categories, on the level of the human heart. Abandon labels. See who the person truly is. But if Simon wishes to use labels, he should use the same label for himself. He also is a debtor. As Jesus now reminds him, I entered your house, you gave me no water for my feet, but she has bathed my feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, hence she has shown great love. We do not know why Simon did not extend to Jesus the basic hospitality expected from every host of his culture. Perhaps he forgot, or he did not consider Jesus worthy of such gestures. In any case, he also is a debtor, a sinner, although only guilty of overstepping social conventions and customs. Yet Jesus sees this omission as the lack of love and care. The woman, on the other hand, showed through her small and unconventional gesture great love. Truly, in the spirit of the famous saying pronounced by Mother Teresa, we can do no great things, only small things with great love. However, institutions, and Simon perhaps with them, care about great things, big projects, and lofty visions that will accomplish something enduring, that will change the society for the better. Simon is interested in discussing great ideas with this itinerant prophet, forgetting a small act of hospitality. The woman, on the other hand, focused on showing her appreciation even though it made all around her apprehensive. But such is the act of love. Love cannot be bound or carefully planned out. It cannot be thoroughly explained and artfully defended. Love is not exhausted by our rational arguments because it is love. This seems to be the second element from the story that challenges our organizations. If God cares about small acts done with great love, how can they be recognized and valued in our institutions that focus on progress and getting things done? Is this even possible? Jesus, truth to be told, goes even further, one step. He adds one more sentence which turns the whole pattern of doing things completely upside down. He says, "The one to whom little is forgiven loves little." The woman felt guilty and therefore was able to commit an act driven by love. The Pharisee thought he was a good man and hence failed even on the level of social customs. For an act of love toward God, we must be guilty first and forgiven next. Those who do not make mistakes love little. Those who do not feel remorse over their past behavior can hardly show compassion in the present. To be able to offer great, full love to others, we must be broken and empty first. How can this undoubtedly crucial attitude for Jesus be embodied in our institutions? Institutions focus on good women and good men, on faithful employees and cooperative co-workers. Obedience and hard work, that is what matters in our organizations. And for many reasons, this is how it should be. But Jesus emphasizes great love. And to be able to show and notice great love, one needs to be guilty first. Jesus indeed is uncomfortable for our typical way of living and functioning. How can we reconcile his attitude with the way we live together? How can our institutions embody the deep care for each human being, the value for small acts done with great love? How can we create a space for making mistakes, indeed for failing, and for failing miserably? Is it even possible? Or shall we rather lower our expectations and accept that even best institutions and churches can only approximate God's standards for our life? Shall we recognize that the most important things in life cannot happen through institutions, but always take place on interpersonal level, where I meet you and you see me for who I truly am? Those are the questions that the story poses for me, and I hope partially also for you. The story about Jesus, Simon, and the unnamed woman, and the sight of the burned down church represent an ongoing challenge for my thinking about God and the best of our institutions. Because Jesus is loving, he is merciful, he offers forgiveness, but he also is uncomfortable.